Hi, Dr. Rudy Kachmann. Welcome to our show. I hope you watch some of our other wellness shows. This one specifically, this half hour, is on preventing, especially type 2 diabetes, because that's possible. There are about 50 diseases associated with type 2 diabetes, so I think this is pretty darn important. We have an epidemic going on in this country of prediabetes and diabetes, and we're doing nothing about it. Yeah, when the blood sugar is over 126, then we start saying you're diabetic. But what providers have not been teaching enough, as far as I'm concerned, especially public health. I consider public health to be responsible for this, really, because they have a diabetic department, and they should be insisting on this, reminding it in the newspaper, making sure the medical schools teach us that the complications, the 50 diseases I mentioned that occur in type 2 diabetes, stoppable, preventable, and reversible, and the illnesses occur in pre-diabetes as well as when the diabetes is full-blown. Yeah. So we get about 20, 30 years before the blood sugar is at 26 that we could have caught this, and through proper eating, changing your gut biome, type of food that you're eating, maybe lose 5-8% of your body fat, the illness would be prevented, stopped, and reversed. Can you imagine the amount of money we would save? Can you imagine the amount of suffering that could be avoided? Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, once you know the complications of type 2 diabetes, we'll speak about type 1 in a minute, which include dementia and blindness, which is preventable 80-90% of the time. Yeah, they found now most dementia, quote, Alzheimer's disease, is due to diabetes. Yeah, they found, a lady published a paper 2 or 3 years ago, that there's an enzyme in the body, IDE enzyme, whose job it is to degrade insulin, okay? When you're pre-diabetic, diabetic, your insulin level is elevated, which they never test for, and they should, because that's elevated before the blood sugar. And brain uses sugar for metabolism, okay? It's IDE's job to degrade insulin after it's been used up to put sugar in the cell. It is all used up doing that because the insulin level, remember, is elevated. Well, guess what IDE's other job is? To degrade amyloid and tau, the proteins in the brain that cause dementia. Huh, yeah. You avoid type 2 diabetes, you reduce dementia rate 75%. Is that ever mentioned by the pharmaceutical companies? Like Eli Lilly and Pfizer, who gave up on the research because they could not come up with a single drug that might cure it. That's not surprising. Dr. Peter Whitehouse wrote a book called The Myth of Alzheimer's Disease, 15 years ago? I read it. And he was the main researcher for Aricept, the one that we hand out for memory loss. And you know what Peter Whitehouse said? He's not the Cleveland Clinic head of neurology. He said, it don't work, 15 years ago. So research to determine a single gene that we could maybe treat is not the answer here. Get rid of type 2 diabetes, that eliminates 75% of the problem. You think it's important, yet they're not screaming it off the rooftops. You know, I am. Let's back up a minute, though. And we've heard of type 1 diabetes where you don't make insulin, okay? And it's more common in children, but what's happened now, because their pancreas, which has to secrete a lot of insulin to get the sugar in the cell for energy, when you have type 2 diabetes, the insulin is working like anything. The pancreas is secreting it as much as possible, and eventually the pancreas that makes the insulin, sends it out, poops out. It dies. Now you got no insulin. Well, what are you now? Type 1 diabetic, okay? So most of the type 1s are actually adults now. 90% of them. The rest is kids who had a virus or bacteria knocked out their pancreas. But other things will knock out their pancreas too and cause type 1. Gluten does that. Rarely is that mentioned to anybody. So testing kids for gluten problems or genetic history in the family is very important. Other things that can do it, what the mother and father ate before they fertilize the egg and the sperm affects their genetic structure, and what fed the child, what the mother ate, drank or ate or smoked during pregnancy can do it. Marijuana, for example, can have a complication of type 1 diabetes. So the mother is smoking that, and it gets to the infant in the uterus, type 1 diabetes rate goes up. Obesity rates go up. It's called epigenetics. We're writing the genetic script of the child. So even what mom and dad ate and smoked and drank before conception, what's in the sperm and the egg, helps determine what will happen to the child. Then fertilization occurs, and the epigenetic changes are passed on to the child, who then grows in the uterus, and then what the mother is consuming and drinking or smoking affects the child, and then the child is born. The method of delivery has importance. Is it vaginal or C-section? Vaginal delivery, the child's infant coming through the vagina face gets covered with bacteria, lactobacillus, and it changes the type of bacteria in the gut. The gut is sterile at birth, okay? And then if the child breastfeeds, certain bacteria, again, come out, affect the gut of the child, which is healthy. If neither one is done, breastfeeding nor vaginal birth, C-section instead, and no breastfeeding, it will have significant health consequences on the child. And one thing is increased rates of type 1 diabetes. Before 1920, these children, most of them died. But the one thing that helped them at that time was a high-fat diet. High-fat diet. But as soon as Banting and Best discovered insulin in 1920 at Harvard, they gave up the high-fat diet. Okay, eat anything you want to, we'll give you insulin. Well, insulin does more than put sugar in the cell. What else does it do? Stiffens the arteries, increased rates of cancer, causes dementia, arthritis, for example, in your joints. So insulin is not just to put sugar in the cell. So you want the level as low as you can. So if you have type 1 diabetes, you want to eat a perfect way of eating, nutrient-dense food, okay? And remember, if the infant had a C-section, the microbiome of the gut is totally different than a child who already has the good bacteria living in their gut and less likely to produce type 1 diabetes. Increased rates of obesity, which occur to children with the wrong microbiome. Okay, we have in us so many bacteria, 10 times as much DNA here in your gut than in your whole body. Those little guys crawling around in your gut determine your health, determine the microbiome, help determine your future. Interesting. Very interesting. So type 2 diabetes now, where insulin can get not the sugar in the cell for energy, which we all need, is occurring in very young people. The highest increase in obesity has been age 2 to 6. And the very overweight, that's increasing too. 200 pounds and over is also increasing too. And there are about 25% of people who are thin. They're trophies, thin on the outside, fat on the inside. They have fatty liver, and they have all the chemical effects in their blood of type 2 diabetes. So really, blood testing is critical, type of blood testing. I personally think we should start testing people starting age 1. Yearly blood testing. Put it in a book or in a computer. It could easily be done. through proper health care, we could have all our health information on a chip. I highly recommend a chip like they do in France. All your health information is on this one card. You go to the doctor's office, you put it in there, and the computer explodes with your health information. And we can see the path to diabetes. Like if it's starting to get red, we can make it in color. Red, we know you're approaching pre-diabetes, and we can say you need to lose 10 pounds, and pre-diabetes would go away. You know how much suffering we would save, how much medical cost we would save. It'd not be hard to do. In France, they have a microchip. It's called card vitale. All your information is on this card. Because we're seeing a lot of diabetics in teenagers. Let's talk about blood testing a little bit. I tell you that the critical and the easiest test is you can do at home. If you get belly fat, you're probably pre-diabetic. You got to prove to me you're not. You get belly fat, you're pre-diabetic, unless you prove to me that you're not. And not just by blood sugar. Serum insulin, because these are receptors on your 70 trillion cells, and it's insulin's job to put sugar into the cell for energy. But these receptors are full of triglycerides, fat, which interferes for the door opener, insulin, to open the cell. That's called insulin resistance. Rarely do I meet a patient who knows what insulin resistance is. I don't blame the patient. I blame us for not teaching them. I make people always a nice drawing. I have them keep the drawing. Now they understand what insulin resistance is, and that's what you have to get rid of. So what are the blood tests that I would run? Record. First of all, record the patient's weight. I check on pot bellies. Track all that as the child is growing up. I know a pediatrician that stands the young kids right in front of the computer and reviews that with them. I think it's just great. He looks at that. What do you think? We need to lose 10 pounds? Or what do you think? Your blood work looks good. Well, it's slightly off. It needs to start with a pediatrician and transfer it to a family doctor, not just anybody. The pediatrician got to pick one that he thinks that is good. It doesn't appear to be possible the way I see it now most of the time, but that would be critical. At least the family needs to keep track of that. If it's on the microchip, there wouldn't be any argument about it. Books wouldn't get lost. You could always pull it off a file, for example. I think that would be a great way. The path to diabetes, we could avoid 50, actually it's up to 70 illnesses that type diabetes can cause. Yeah. The obesity doctor told me, no, doc, it isn't 50, it's 70. How about that? So your whole family know what their sugars are. Lipid profile is important. What's your LDL, HDL? You want to know what your very low density LD is. The particle number and particle size. That determines what's going on. The large LDL, that fluffy one going through your blood, doesn't really mean a lot. Also, a good one is triglyceride HDL ratio. That's a good one, a good test to get. And if you're looking at some stage in your life, you're not a child, get a glucose tolerance test, 2-hour glucose tolerance test, fasting blood sugar, fasting serum insulin. Same thing, 1 hour, fasting blood sugar, serum insulin, same thing. 2 hours, blood sugar, serum insulin. You will, remember what I said, the serum insulin can be elevated 10, 15 years before the blood sugar. So if you're running screening at factories like I have seen, where they don't check the serum insulins because of cost, for example, they're missing many type 2 diabetics. Yeah, I've witnessed that and try to do something about it. Well, I'm doing something about it, right now. If we diagnose it early, it is not hard. We don't need to make this complex. It doesn't take 20 lectures, okay? I notice the American Diabetic Association has a lecture series goes on for months. 1 or 2 would do it. If you just maybe repeat the same ones, keep it simple. I'm trying to keep it very simple because it's simple. Yes, it's simple to get rid of type 2 diabetes. I got this handout here I give people out just to let them know what I do. You can get a free copy from me when you see me. Yeah, I'll hold it up for you. And in my lectures, I give this out free. This is based on David Katz's book, Disease Proof Your Life, biggest public health official in the nation. He gets it. Most of public health does not get it. I've been all over the state. They don't get it. I even heard one of them say at a meeting, at a wellness meeting, you can't get rid of type 2 diabetes. It's a lie, a lie, a lie. He says, and the biggest public health official, Dr. David Katz, 93% of type 2 diabetes can be avoided. 80% of vascular disease, your blood vessel disease, your 300,000 miles of blood vessels that you got, most heart attacks, strokes, can be avoided. So when right away it's called angiogram to surgery, and no one brings up proper lifestyle, that's a mistake. And not to let a patient know if they get type 2 diabetes that they could excuse me. I think I'm allergic to something because I don't have a cold. 80% of obesity, 50% of cancer, 60% of breast cancer. Our addictions can be avoided through lifestyle teaching. Not a big deal. Just, and I'll talk about in a minute, just eating the right food, no diet, no diet. And so we get the proper testing done every year, so we know, the lipid profile, the low density LDL, your blood sugars. Maybe you need a glucose tolerance test. Mark Hyman, in his book, actually, you can print it off, 70 pages free off his website, How to Speak to Your Doctor. It's a great one. And he's got diabetes into 5 stages. Actually, Dr. Atkins did it too. Not many people know that. Yeah, the Atkins book has the 5 stages to diabetes right in there, based of 62 papers from Dr. DeFranzo, the biggest public health official on diabetes in the world. I spoke to him personally on the phone one time. He based the stages of diabetes based on that. So when people, bad-mouthing the Atkins diet, they just didn't read enough. Mm-hmm. In the end, maybe he recommends too much meat, okay? But he said sugar was the booger and the hooker, right? And he had the stages where he could diagnose it early. He had the serum insulins in there. He had everything in there. Mm-hmm. People don't emphasize that. And he didn't die from diabetes. He died from a blood clot in his brain in New York City. I've read all that. So he considering the science at the time, his book actually was just about right on it. But in the end, maybe too many fatty meats, okay? But he got rid of the sugar. I bet people's diabetes went down. What to do? Keep it simple. Keep it simple. For example, if your calorie burn in one day, just as simple as it gets, in one day, say, was this, okay? 3/4 of it is your basic metabolic rate. That's the energy used up by your brain, your heart, your lungs, your pancreas, your muscles, your skin, okay? Just sitting there. No exercise, just sitting there. So a real big guy's he's going to burn more calories based on his basic metabolic rate, okay? Little guy, it would be less. Then the thermic effect of food, 20% or so. If you eat a lot of fatty foods, 4% lost to metabolism. The rest will be in your belly, your buttocks, unless you use it up 4 hours, okay? Vegetables and fruit have a lot of fiber in them. And the fiber will escape through your stool, most of it. and maybe you lose 40% of the calories that way. Protein digestion, maybe use up 25% of the calories. Do you see my point? Your BMR, you can't change a lot. Thermic effect of food, type of food, fruits, vegetables, fruit. You're going to lose 500 calories or so by selecting the type of food. And when you eat that way, you will change your microbiome of your gut, which is what determines your health tremendously. Okay? Okay. And then we have another 30, 40% left, activity of living. AOL, I call it. Activity of living is a term, frankly, I coined, not to take credit, but I thought it's something easy to remember. What's activity of living? Parking the car far away at work and walking, okay? Using stairs instead of the elevator. Standing up when the phone rings, okay? Taking a walk over the lunch hour, or at home you took the dog for a walk in the morning and maybe again in the evening. All that burns up calories. If you can increase your activity of living, say 200 calories a day, that shouldn't be hard. That's why you hear about stand-up desks, very desks, treadmill desks. You hear and read about them. I know of an insurance agency in town that bought, I think, 6 treadmill desks, had some very desks, and the employees are doing it. It's helping them a lot, okay? If you can increase it 200 calories a day, divide it into 3,500 calories per pound, into 365 days, you lost 20 pounds. Yeah. What do you think would happen to your diabetes if you weigh, say, 180? Now you weigh 160. What do you think happened to your diabetes? Goodbye, diabetes. Okay? Takes about 8-10% of body weight loss. Diabetes is gone, so it's not hard. You weigh 300 pounds, it may take a little more. But the effect, actually, even there is pretty good, is darn good. So when you combine activity of living, thinking about the thermic effect of food, type of food selection, you see, is that complex? Did I ask you to go on a diet? I didn't mention a diet. I said type of food, increase your AOL, maybe take a little walk. That's not even critical. Take the dog for a walk, whatever. Increase your AOL a bit. And if you get a major problem, burn 500 calories a day. Make it fun, you know, and dance a little, whatever, you know. And I do tap dancing. That's even better. No, it's true, but I do. Yeah. In fact, I did it with Cherie Key, a dance studio with a bunch of children. I didn't know she had children, but she asked me to dance at the Civic, and I did. And you know what happened then? They sent the tape to Disney. You know what happened? Disney invited them to come to Disneyland, and they did. I didn't go because I thought it was for kids. Well, that's a mistake. I should have gone. But they came back with trophies and all kind of stuff. Congratulations to those beautiful children of all races, all cultures. I didn't realize Sheena at Cherie Key has been teaching this to children for 20 years. Can you imagine the amount of good she's done to the community? And these kids, you think they're going to get diabetes? I doubt it. What I saw, they were doing somersaults back and forth over each other, hip-hopping, and oh my God. These kids are going to be very healthy. They're happy. When I was in line waiting to go on stage, they were smiling, had jewelry on, and beautiful dresses, blacks and whites and greens. And I mean, it was diversity if I ever saw it. And to Sheena from Cherie Key. And those kids are going to be very healthy mentally and physically. So it's not that hard, okay? So I ask you to get to work. If you don't want to read much, I'll tell you an easy way too, is Dr. Furman's book, Quick Fix. He's a friend of mine, and he's full of recipes and soups and pictures of a recipe. There isn't a thing in there you wouldn't want to eat. No diet. Eat all you want, okay? You use this book. You got type 2 diabetes. You use this book. Within a month, 90% goodbye diabetes. you don't have to achieve the weight totally that you want. It's when you're on the way, it'll already go away. You need to check your blood sugar more frequently. You need to check with your doctor about your blood sugars and your medications. I didn't say stop the medication. Your doctor tells you that. But you'll see in Furman's and Hyman's books and Esseltine's books, you'll have to get rid of your medications pretty quick because your blood sugars are going to go down. And you need to know the symptoms of low blood sugar, because Dr. Furman would say your blood sugars will almost return to normal within a week. Yeah. It makes sense because I just gave a talk on your gut biome and your bacteria, which run the metabolism of your body, frankly. Those bacteria on their own die about every 30 minutes. So if you're giving bad food or good food, your gut biome will be reprogrammed within hours. Within hours. I now see the explanation of why Furman and Dr. Esseltine and different people have written about this, Dr. Hyman, how quickly this occurs, that you get rid of your type 2 diabetes, and it's 70 illnesses associated with it. So not to act on it seems a little silly, you know what I mean? Yeah, because of the complications, remember, dementia, blindness, amputations, unannounced heart attacks, strokes, I can go on, increased rates of cancer, all avoidable. This is, to me, the biggest health crisis in this country and the world. You can go to Saudi Arabia, you can go to other countries, South Korea even. It'd be interesting. I would wonder how much diabetes is in North Korea. They ain't eating too much. Wouldn't that be interesting? I'd love to check the blood of 1,000 people. It's never going to happen. But eating different food, I mean, you kind of wonder. I suspect the well-to-do people in Korea, like the kings in the past, where sugar is readily available, they get the illnesses. It's the common man that may not have the illnesses, because that's what happened years ago when we ate 4 pounds of sugar a year. Now we're eating 100 pounds of sugar a year. That's the huge difference. So in summary, I want you to step up to the plate to prevent type 1. Milk drinking and gluten can cause type 1. Autoimmune disease can cause type 1. What the mother and father are eating, type 2 diabetes, prevent them, stop them, reverse them. What I taught you today is it's not hard. It's not hard, nothing complicated. Eat all you want of nutrient-dense food. Take a walk, dance a little, whatever you like. Pick an exercise that you enjoy. And if you need the recipes, get Furman's cookbook. Smoothie a day will keep the doctor away because it's full of vitamins and minerals, the phytochemicals that run the metabolism of your body that make you healthy. Smoothie a day is very important. And maybe cook the way Furman does out of this great recipe. Good tasting food. Goodbye, diabetes. Yeah, goodbye. Come to our lectures. Watch our public access TV, radio, Kachmann Health website, Facebook, Kachmann Live to Be 100, Facebook, Kachmann Mind Body Institute. You can get a lot of information. Amazon books, I got 15 books there. I'm trying to get information to you. We do this because we love you, we care about you. We even see people for free as patients at the Three Rivers Pharmacy every Friday, like I did today. And that was fascinating. I think I helped a lot of people. See you at the next show. If you see me, give me a hug, buy me a cup of coffee, whatever. Bye-bye.